Hi, Antranik. How are you?
Hi, Lenore. Hi. I'm great, thank you.
Yeah, so I'm joined today by Antranik. That's an unusual name. I've never heard it before.
hmm
An expert on strength, flexibility, and health. And it's way more relevant for me and my colleagues who sing than one might think. I was looking up online stuff to just improve my own health and my own body. The body is our singing instrument, so this is important. And then I came across your website. I actually have a funny anecdote why I came to your website of all.
hmm
Um, is because I have a student, a 13-year-old, who and learning how to walk on the rope. And I thought it was called tightrope walking, but today they don't call it that anymore,
yeah,
right?
slacklining. They call it
Slacklining.
slacklining. It's
Yeah.
basically a tight rope used to be a very tight, wound up rope, and a slackline is like a flat, modern webbing. It's a flat webbing, so
hmm
it has a lot more slack, literally, more slack with it.
Yeah, I mean, English is not my mother tongue, so I'm not really sure what that means, that it has more slack.
It's more loose. It's more loose.
Ah,
When
okay.
you step on it, it's not like
So it's not as tight as the tightrope.
exactly.
And why is it important that it's flat?
It's more comfortable. It's not that it's important. It's just before decades ago, we didn't even have the technology to make the webbing to make that kind of flat cloth, so to
hmm
speak. And it's
Oh,
really
so it's like high-tech stuff.
it's high tech. Yeah, it's high tech. It's not high tech anymore, but it's high tech for human history. Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
and climbers were using it um, as a way to help them climb. And then when they got
hmm
bored and they couldn't climb because of weather or something like that, they started
hmm
to put the webbing that they have from one end to the other and just try to walk on it to kill some time.
Okay.
And then that evolved into a sport.
Yeah. So, I mean, the reason I was looking up, tightrope walking, that's what I was looking for before I figured that it was not called that, was that my student was telling me how he was learning posture.
Mhm.
He was learning about posture as a preparation to walk on the line. And I found that everything that he said was one to one what I'm trying to teach in my lessons and what I need to do for myself when I'm singing. So I was like, yeah, I would like to get an expert on that and talk about it a little bit
That's very
because I think
interesting.
that's fascinating.
I don't know anything about singing in general. I mean, I do it in the car alone, with
Yeah.
nobody else around.
Mm-hmm.
But I found it very interesting that posture is very related to singing. I had no idea. And
Oh
then
yeah.
in slacklining particularly, I mean, whenever you're slacklining, you don't want to be hunched forward. Either you have to be upright, and you shouldn't be looking down. You should be looking ahead because people will look down at the line, but the line is moving.
Oh.
So
Okay.
if you're looking at something moving, you will lose your balance.
Right.
So it's good to
So
look
you
forward.
don't even look like, I mean, when I do yoga poses, for example, that need balance, then they say just look diagonally forward. It's like, but you are supposed to look a little bit
You can look a little
down.
down, but when you start slacklining, people will put their arms up and stand, and but
Mm.
they'll be looking straight down at their feet.
Okay. Yeah,
Uh,
that doesn't
and
sound
that
like a good
doesn't,
idea.
yeah, exactly. And in slacklining, the arms are tend to be up, which also reinforces good posture because a
Yeah.
lot of times people don't have the movement here. They lose the movement in this range, especially when people
The
get old.
shoulders, you mean?
Yeah, just moving the arms up. And
Hmm.
yeah.
So, okay, so you basically you put your arms up, and as you're trying to balance on the line, I saw that in one of your videos.
Yeah.
You just let your arms freely move around.
Yeah, your arms act like a tail. So if you're falling to the one side, your arms are gonna react and go to that side until that becomes automatic. So it's kind of like that.
But are you eventually supposed to do it without the hands up?
It takes a long time to do it without the hands up. I would say it's pretty advanced to be able to walk with the hands down. It's difficult. I do it and it's very difficult, but it took me a long time to do it. So most of the time, if you see anyone on the slack line, both arms are usually up.
Okay, I want to talk more about this because it is really, really good. But I'm just curious how you came to do this interesting combination that you have on your channel. So you have the slacklining, you have yoga, you have some workouts, and all kinds of stuff. And it's really it's a really unique combination that I've not seen anywhere else.
Well, I live in Los Angeles, and yoga is huge here. Everyone does yoga. Like the past 15 years, probably, yoga is very popular, right? I'm sure it's like that in Europe too. It's popular everywhere.
Yeah, it's popular everywhere.
Yeah, and in Southern California especially. And so I discovered yoga. I've always been active and very active, but I discovered yoga maybe 10 years ago. I started to get serious into it, and I discovered it was just an amazing practice overall. And then I discovered a place called Muscle Beach in LA, where it's just like an outdoor playground on the beach for adults. It has, rings and parallel bars and pull-up bars and climbing rope, and you're out in the sun, and there's a grass area. You can stretch and do yoga or anything you want. And the whole vibe was so liberating and free, and everybody going there was very health oriented as well, very like-minded individuals, and they're doing not just yoga but acro yoga, which is like partner yoga. And and so when I discovered this area, I was almost enlightened, because like I discovered a whole new world of bodyweight exercises with not just yoga, but gymnastics, strength training, and slacklining, and everything in between. So I started. It really transformed my life, because it included everything that I had been missing. I didn't know I was missing. Going to a yoga studio is great, but doing it out in the sun, in the open, and putting on some headphones and not paying attention to anyone else is just fantastic. You could do that.
And at the same time being with everybody.
Yeah, and there's a community. So that was the big thing. If you live in the city, it's hard to find a place where you can go and meet people naturally. But over there, you would go and you start to see the same people over and over, and you start to learn their names, and they learn your name, and then you don't even have to say, "Hey, I'm gonna go. Are you going?" You just go, and people are there or they're not there, and you interact and you become friends over time.
Yeah.
And there was nothing like that I've ever experienced in LA. I grew up in LA, and it's a big city. There's no central community aspect like that. Sure, you have your friends, you go to friends' homes, but to go to a park, to the beach specifically, and have a place like that where it's not just like-minded individuals, but they are all health-oriented for movement. Yeah. And so that really was what changed my life, and I got obsessed with that, which is a good,
with how good it feels.
Good obsession, yeah. And Right now, I made it my life's goal to share everything that I learn through all this practice with other people. So whether it's
Yeah.
yoga or a stretch or something to do with getting stronger or posture. Yeah. Oh, and funny thing
Yeah.
with posture, anytime we mention posture, like what happens naturally, I've noticed this, is if I hear someone talking about postures, I will naturally fix my posture.
Just by talking about it,
Yeah,
you fix it.
just yeah, exactly. Isn't that interesting? You've probably noticed that
Yeah.
too when you
Yeah,
know.
but I actually encourage my students to just think about a certain element of the posture instead of trying to do it. Because if you try to fix something actively, then you do it with muscle tension.
Yeah.
Whereas when you just think about it, then the brain will do what's necessary. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just think, okay, now you just put your chin a little bit lower. Then people will just push their head down.
Hmm.
Yeah. But if
Uh-huh.
you just say, okay, just think that the chin is looking a little bit down, but don't do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, I would think that the shoulder blades are closer together in the back. I'm just thinking about it. It happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially if you go through a certain process where you've felt it before, like what it's like to have good posture, then it's of course easier even to go back to it just by remembering
Yeah. The
what it was like.
simple thing I always share with people that they can do anywhere if their shoulders are tight is just to roll their shoulders. Like you can roll your shoulders forward,
Mm-hmm.
up to your ears, and then back, and then down. And then that back and down is the final really good position.
Right.
So
Yeah. Oh, it
just
feels good.
doing that a few times alone is already very good. And then so that
Mm.
feels good, and then it teaches them where is the good position to end up in.
Yeah.
And then also you can do that on hands and knees. Do that same motion with straight arms,
Mm.
just like that, but with straight arms.
Uh-huh.
And then when you're in downward dog, do that same thing. Do those
Oh, I've
same
never done that in
do
downward
these
dog.
same shoulder rolls in downward dog with your elbows
Cool.
straight, and you will feel your shoulders, your upper, basically your neck and upper shoulders
Yeah.
loosen and activate at the same time. It's not just
Mm.
loosening; it's strengthening because there's a force against it with gravity,
Mm.
and
So that's
that
interesting for me. That's really interesting. So the balance between releasing and strengthening.
yeah, because it's
Because
not
I,
just stretching. It's also strengthening. Oftentimes, a tight muscle is also a weak muscle. You know what I mean? So if it's
mm,
strong in that full range, it can also be flexible. They're not separate things. So oftentimes people think they are separate.
yeah, that's why personal trainers, when they know what they're talking about, they will put uh, equal emphasis on stretching the muscles after you work them out, right? So like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
work up
yeah.
the muscles, and then also have to stretch and relax the muscles. Otherwise, you can cause damage to yourself.
Yeah, it won't be damage. It's just you'll lose the flexibility over time if you don't work on it. Just like
Mm-hmm.
anything else, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people think that strength training, if you get really strong, you lose flexibility. But it's not true. What people do is they get stronger. They just neglect flexibility training, so
Right.
they naturally just get less flexible when they think
Yeah.
it's because they're getting stronger. Is that? But you can do both in a balanced way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah. So they're like posture muscles, right? I don't really know a lot about that, but I know that there are muscles that are responsible of just helping us keep straight, yeah, and
yeah,
not like slouch and stuff.
Yes, a
And
lot
then
of
there are
your
other muscles who are supposed to be relaxed. So can you talk about that a little bit?
the main muscles, yeah, there's a lot, numerous muscles involved with posture, but
Yeah,
the
for sure.
main ones are generally for your the upper back is a big one. Hips too. Sometimes if people have very tight hips, and the hip is, I can't show you, but if your butt is sticking out too much because your lower back is tight and your hip flexors, the
Mm-hmm.
front of your thighs are really tight, it affects the shoulders as well. So
So you will be arching basically, no?
yes,
You'll be
yes,
arching your back.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And but the main when we think of posture is the upper back. If I had to say, when you look at young people, they are always like they're looking at their phones and their neck is like kind of like this now. They're like stuck
Yeah.
in this position and the shoulders are like this.
Oh no.
The
Mm-hmm.
best the best way they could counter that is to strengthen their upper back. And I think everybody should be able to do at least one pull-up, okay? And that is a very difficult thing for some people, but it's a good goal to practice, because if you can just do one pull-up, because most people honestly can barely do one, right?
Yeah, I can't. I can't do it.
Yeah, it's hard, especially for women, but it's not impossible. It just takes more work for women and
Right.
more commitment and perseverance. But imagine how strong your back will be if you can just do one pull up. You know what I mean? You
Yeah,
don't have to
sure.
do 20 pull ups or anything, but that is
How do you
one.
go about training for a pull-up? Like,
So
where do you start?
if you have a pull up bar at home,
But if I don't?
if you don't have a pull up bar at home, you should get one. They have
Okay,
those.
noted.
They have those. They have those $20 pull-up bars that you could put in the doorway that are very helpful, because anytime you pass through, you can either just hang for a minute.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's really good.
Hanging is very therapeutic alone. So just that alone is very good. And then the easiest way, not the easiest way, but the most common way, is to jump up, like, or put a chair and put
Mm-hmm.
your chin over the bar, and then tighten up and slowly lower down as slowly as you can. So
Okay.
you're doing a negative pull-up.
Mm.
You're not doing a pull-up, you're doing just the opposite action. And
Right.
by doing that over time, you will be able to slow down um, how slow you can go down. Eventually, you'll find that you
Mm-hmm.
can actually pause
Also,
and then
pause
maybe
and then,
pull.
wow, that looks like a long way to go, but very doable.
It is doable. It's very logical. And in the beginning, maybe it's like a free fall. Maybe it's like maybe it's maybe it's no control. If it's no control, then just hang over. Don't even worry about pulling yourself down. Just put your chin over and
Yeah,
just hold for as long as possible.
yeah.
And that, and another way are to do rows. I don't know if you have access to a gym, or the people listening to this, there are machines for rowing that are very good,
Mm-hmm.
and those also help strengthen these back muscles as well.
Mm-hmm. Or
Um,
go kayaking.
yeah, kayaking, that works. And yoga doesn't use any pull-up bars or machines or weights, but there are so many actions that still strengthen the upper back. Like if you're in a, like warrior one and your arms are
Mm.
up, right? The arms just being up, or sometimes they say do this,
That's hard.
yeah, like it builds up over time. If you do that for many times in a yoga session over and over, it builds up enough strength in that position
Yeah.
to have good posture. Being able to do a pull-up is just icing on the cake.
Is that what you do? Is that what you focus on your yoga for posture video?
For yoga, for posture, I try to make it as well-rounded as possible, so it has everything, a little bit of everything. There's no one
Mm,
focus on only one. It's hard making a video for the world when I make it for YouTube. You know, I'm sure you feel the same way, where the
mm,
audience is, it could be anyone, right?
right.
If you're teaching one person, you know exactly what they need and what they need to focus on. But if it's for everyone, I have to make it a little bit of everything usually to make it balanced.
Yeah. And also somehow make it like a little process that they can go through, like a little complete, I guess, complete training.
And progressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm wondering about the connection between yoga and slacklining. Is there a connection?
Um, the first thing that's a good, interesting question. Breathing is very important. You have to be breathing consistently on the slack line. And then the other thing that comes to mind is tree pose. Tree pose, like a tree pose where you're standing on one leg.
Okay.
You know, the easiest way to
Oh, the
actually,
tree pose, yeah.
the easiest way to balance or to learn how to balance on a slack line without a slack line
Mm-hmm.
is to just stand on one leg, put your arms up,
Yeah.
and close your eyes. This
Ooh.
is actually really hard. And
Yeah, I
even me, I'm, you know, everyone at
imagine.
home could try this probably right now, is to just stand on one leg, put your
Yeah, do
arms
it, do
up,
it, do it. I'm
and
sitting down. Maybe I can stand up for a minute.
maybe you can.
I just want to try it. Okay, just a second.
Hmm.
Let's see if I can do that. Okay. So
Yeah.
stand on one leg.
Stand on one leg, your arms up.
Already not the best, but okay.
Uh-huh.
And close my eyes. Holy wow.
Yeah, and
Totally
just,
gonna fall. Okay. Yeah, I cheated. I put my foot down for a second. But now, okay, it's getting a
uh-huh.
bit easier.
And relax your
Yeah, that's
shoulders.
hard.
Hmm.
And relax the shoulders too.
Yeah,
Ooh.
so if you're like this, it's not optimal. If you just relax them a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Okay, so
you see
feel
it's
free to
really,
move the hands around.
sure.
Okay.
You see
Yeah,
it's
I definitely
very
have to work on
deceiving.
that.
It's very deceiving. You would think it's easy, but it's actually really hard. You
No,
have to,
it's not easy. No, it's
yeah.
not easy at all.
And if you learn how to do that, if you learn how to do that with your eyes closed, when you try to slackline, it's very similar. It's a very similar process, and it's fun. It's fun. I mean, you could set a timer, make a goal for 10 seconds. I'm not gonna put the foot down for 10 seconds, let's say, and then make it 20 seconds. You know, it's fun.
Good one.
It's a fun goal. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So balance and yeah, what was the other one? Yeah, I assume.
And breathing.
And the breathing.
Yeah.
And I suppose that, in general, posture is very important in yoga, and you said that it's also important in slacklining.
Yeah. And what is it with, I want to know about singing, how it relates to, what is like,
yeah, why is that important?
What is the number one issue people have that the posture will impede the voice?
Yeah, so that I was gonna actually say that when you have good posture, ideally, and you see that on most singers that sing well, is that they have relaxed shoulders and they have long, straight necks. Yeah, and in general, the upper part of the body is relaxed, and the spine is just relaxed and straight. What that does is that it basically enables the air to flow properly, because you have the air pipe, the trachea, and then you have on top of that you have the voice box, the larynx, and it's part of where the air is coming through. The vocal cords then close. The vocal cords are in the voice box. They close, and then the air is going through them. So imagine what would happen if your neck was not straight. Yeah, if, for example, you were pushing your head forward, you're putting pressure on the airway.
I see.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it just makes it harder. It makes it harder to manage the breath, and it makes it harder to make the sound because there is pressure on the larynx. And the pressure on the larynx can come from many different angles, because I'm sure you know that the muscles are connected, to the group of muscles that is next to them. So if you have jaw tension, chances are you're going to have throat muscle tension, and back of the neck tension, and shoulder tension.
I see.
And tongue tension.
Tongue tension. I never thought of that.
Mm-hmm.
Tension.
But in yoga, they work on tongue, right? They have the lion pose.
That's right. We did that.
There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that, because the tongue can get really tough. Yeah, it can get really tense and basically interfere with the airflow.
Yeah.
And with the other muscles.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, like, each of us has like a main issue, like the tension is generating from one part and not from the other. But eventually, chances are, if you have tension in one part, you'll have tension in the other parts as well.
Speaking of the jaw tension, I have this video. You could probably find it if you just type jaw self-massage and my name, Antranik. Basically,
I'm gonna do that.
You have to lay on your stomach, and then you put one fist over the other.
Okay.
And then you just lay so you're laying on the floor, and you have your hands like this, and then you lay your head over your knuckles. And you could feel the tension. It's not really strong right now because you're not laying down. When you lay down and you can just relax your entire head over it, it's a very powerful self-massage that is very helpful for anyone who has like TMJ, which is can be very basically very tight jaw muscles, which cause headaches and migraines and other issues. So
I have a bit of that, yeah.
Yeah, it's very helpful, and doing that in a yoga session is fantastic, because sometimes in the middle of the yoga session you are laying on your stomach, right? So why not tell the class to do this jaw massage?
Right.
Right there.
Well, it's also, I can imagine that, I've experienced it, that if you're releasing certain parts of the body, most of us still needs this, like, a false sense of control. And then usually we'll choose a different muscle to tense
up
while the others are relaxing.
Absolutely.
So sometimes it will help, just thinking about the shoulders relaxing, for example, can help you release the jaw. But sometimes it will be the opposite.
Yeah, you're right. It could be, the body can compensate in some way or another. You were mentioning with the vocal cords and larynx. I remember the interesting thing. I don't know if this is entirely true. Maybe you know, but I was reading that humans are one of the only animals that can die from choking because our vocal cords are much bigger. Our voice box is much bigger than other animals in general, and that's what gives it the
vulnerability.
Vulnerability, and what allows us to make complex sounds. But the drawback is there's less space for the food to go through. So I don't know if I don't know if humans are the only animal with that issue, but I remember reading we were one of the only ones.
That makes sense. I did not hear about that, but it makes sense to me.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, the larynx is actually it's like natural healthy function as a voice box is that it can move around a little bit. Yeah. So if you don't put pressure too much. Yeah. But if you
I've never tried to move this ever.
You know where your Adam's apple is?
Yes.
Your Adam's apple is your larynx. Yeah. So for guys, it really sticks out a little bit. So for girls, it's just the top of of the trachea, of the air pipe. So really gently, don't pressure on it, but just try to relax the jaw and the neck. And then you see that you can move that side to side a little bit.
Oh, really? Relaxing the jaw is very helpful.
Yeah, you have to do that. Otherwise, it's difficult to move the larynx around.
Nice.
And then when you sing it in a healthy way, then that the larynx vibrates with it. It should not be fixed. Like it should not be fixed in one place.
Mm-hmm.
It should be able to tremble slightly. So that means necessarily that it's vulnerable.
Yeah, that's
So
interesting.
yeah.
I don't, like I said, I don't have any singing experience, but singing is wonderful. There's been so many moments where I'm singing alone and my eyes are filling up with tears and I'm going to cry because I'm feeling so, I guess, emotional. I don't know. It's not, there's no thoughts about it. That's what's happening. And that's a beautiful thing. I don't know. Does that happen to you? You sing?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
have students who have emotional moments.
Yeah.
In the lesson, because it could be overwhelming when your body is open and you have vibrations going through your body. I mean, do you have anything more intimate than that?
Yeah, it is very intimate is a good word for it. And I saw that video of you doing singing and doing yoga at the same time. So every time you inhale and then on the exhale you are singing and your voice sounds amazing.
Thank you.
And I mean your voice sounds amazing
true.
already, but like wow, I never seen such a thing. And then you have one in pigeon pose and that's so interesting how you're singing while doing yoga. That must be very unique.
Yeah, I don't know if it's so unique, but I wrote an article about it, of how yoga and singing are so connected and why singers have to do yoga. And it's really everything that yoga is working on is beneficial for singing. It's the posture, it's the breathing, it's the movement. I want to talk to you about that a little bit too. Like just keep moving, not being stiff. This is so critical to get a free sound. And I trained for years, but if I sing while doing yoga, I feel like I can sing anything.
Wow, that is very cool.
Yeah, I wish I could do that all the time.
Did you write that on your website? Is it on singwell.eu?
Yeah, okay. It's on singwell.eu, and there on the top of the website you have voice tips, and there you have all the articles. You can also do a search for yoga. Okay. I also wrote something about sports, why sports is really important for singers. So before we talk about the movement that I wanted to ask you about, being active. You said that you've always been active. Have you experienced periods when you were lazy and you didn't want to do any sports? And if yes, how did you deal with that? And do you have advice for lazy people like me?
That's a good question. So when I was very young, I was not active. I was a computer nerd. And when I became a teenager, I started to become more active. But that's a good question. I've always intrinsically had this motivation to do something. And you really have to find what makes you feel alive and passionate. I feel this certain high when I'm let's say I'm riding my bike or going skiing or whatever it is, or going to a yoga class. I mean, all of these things, I feel I always feel better afterwards, and my body has I guess by association, my body just associates that these activities are good. and so I should do them. And if someone not, and I don't think everyone has that experience yet, and but you have to find what sport or activity will help you find that freedom, so that every time you do it, it could be tennis, it could be soccer, it could be anything. It could be your own, you know.
It doesn't have to be workouts. Yeah, some people would just find that boring, but
it could even just be juggling. You know, I mean, that is also an interesting sport with movement and mind. It's using your brain
and balance.
And balance, yeah, and it's a very skillful little thing that might, and there's a lot going on. So I find all these.
So find something you like, something that's fun for you.
Yeah, and I like variety. So I don't like doing the same thing every day. There are some things I do a lot, but I like variety, and I like that over the years, as my body has become more capable of doing things, I can try other things. Like I go ice skating now once in a while. I never used to do
I love that.
ice skating. I never, you know, but now because I have enough cross training from other things that I can kind of do it, and it's fun. So you really have to find one or two things in the beginning that kind of stick to it, commit to it. If you're liking it, stick to it. A lot of people have issues with commitment. You know, we live in this disposable society, right? We buy something and then we use it for a month and we throw it away because it's made so cheap. And a lot of things are disposable, and so that concept, I think people are applying it to not just physical things, but to relationships. You know, people are will not commit to a relationship. They just want to go from one to another. And then the same thing with exercise and your health. You have to, if you want to lose weight, you have to, if you want to do a diet, you have to stick to it for a few weeks or some sort of amount of time. Not just a day, you know.
And expect results.
Yeah,
right away.
And so same thing with sports. I can't, or any activity. For me, yoga helped me find my freedom like nothing else. And I've noticed a lot of people don't like yoga or don't have a good experience of it from trying it once or twice. And I find that you have to keep trying different teachers until you find a teacher that you love, because there are so many different classes. Each teacher has a different style, a different energy. They say one says too much, one says nothing. And yoga is
same goes for singing.
Yeah, I'm sure it's the same.
It's just different approaches, and everybody's trying to get to the same place in different ways.
Yeah, exactly. And when you find one that is really working with you, you connect with them, keep going to them, you know?
Yeah.
And you have to just really stick to it until that becomes part of your life, where you feel like, oh, you have to do it. Like, if I don't do that, something's missing in my life, you know? So
yeah, make it part of your life.
Yeah, so that's a general tip, I guess I would say, to help someone stay committed or motivated.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you about, I want to go a little bit to slacklining, because this is the thing that I know almost nothing about.
Sure.
But this student of mine said that just before you step on the line, you need to basically put your body in order, so to speak. So can you explain a little bit about what you have to do to prepare going on the line?
Yeah, that's an interesting cue. One of the first things when you put into order, it's not so much that you have to put into order. It's just more like you have to commit. Again, it's a commitment thing. Don't think
Okay.
that, and when you go up, you have to raise your arms up at the same time to help you stand. And then looking forward. A lot of when people are starting, they will stand, and then before they even try to balance, they know they're gonna fall, so they just fall before they even try to balance. So maybe
Just give up.
yeah, they just give up. So you have to like fight for it, I think.
Okay, that's interesting.
You have to like really, yeah, because otherwise you won't make you won't make progress. Again, it's that commitment thing, really.
Yeah. So I mean, this is really that taps into what I experience in singing, and let me explain what I mean. If you are going to make a sound, yeah, and you make a sound and you don't like it, and you go like, no, nah. I was like making a sound. Oh no, that was ugly. No, no, and then you start, banging the head against the wall. Why is it ugly? I suck. Blah, blah, blah. And you just don't get to sing because you keep stopping yourself almost in advance, like you didn't even give it a chance. And it sounds a little bit like what you're saying, yeah.
Interesting.
You have to fight for it.
Exactly,
you have to keep going somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah. You have to. I suppose if you're trying to walk on the line, you have to keep moving, or you will fall. Right?
Yes. I consider this. So I consider slacklining and juggling and singing. I think so. It's all what I consider skill work. Like meaning it requires repetitive action frequently, over and over and over and over, not just once a month, not once a week, but like every day, a little bit to help. Otherwise you won't make progress with it. You know what I mean?
But because it's a muscle memory, because you have to basically make your body do stuff that it's not used to be doing.
It's very refined work. It requires precision. It requires and that mind body connection. I mean the mental connection, the connections within your brain that help make that happen. It needs practice, repetitive practice, and it requires a lot of failure. I say failure because it's not failure. You need to fail to get to the success.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Like, can you elaborate on that? Because this is exactly what I'm trying to get to. It's difficult to fail. Yeah, it's very difficult mentally for people, and I'm no different, to try to do something, and you know what you're supposed to do. You know what the end goal is. And of course you want to get there right away, and you also understand that you have to practice. But in the moment, when you feel this is not working, this is where, you have to start to do a little bit of mental work. Yeah. So I suggest, reserve the judgment to after you sung the phrase, for example. Yeah. Sing the whole phrase. After that, you can think about, okay, what happened? What did I do? Whatever. Yeah, and make it a little bit more constructive. But don't think during the singing. Like, don't stop to think. Don't listen to the sound and say, is it good or not good? Because then you basically stop the flow.
Yeah.
So what would you say, to yourself if if you fall, for example, off the line, or like, what would you say to your students?
Well, if I'm teaching a student, I will, let's say they're doing something and they are just the second they didn't succeed, and then they try the second time and they didn't succeed. To them they didn't succeed, but I can see that they were 1% better. You know what I mean? And
Okay.
And they don't notice that
Mm-hmm.
because they're not even used to this action, whatever it is that we are doing. But I'm used to, I'm experienced, I have the vision for it, and you will have the ear for it.
Right.
You can hear a little bit of a success. To them, it's a
Mm-hmm.
failure. Automatically, it's a failure.
Yeah.
But I guess I would tell them to, another thing I say is, you are the worst at something the first time you ever tried, right? The first
Mm.
time you ever do anything, you're going to be terrible at it, no matter what it is, no matter if it's sports, no matter if it's sex, no matter if it's whatever, it's not going to be good. It's going to be whatever. It's going to be, and then it's going to get better over time, right?
Right.
And, uh,
So consider the little improvements on the way. Don't,
yes,
don't
the
jump.
micro advancements.
Yeah. Don't jump too much ahead.
Because that's what I do for me personally. Like, um, like I'm working on handstand push-ups. It's an advanced
What?
push-up in a handstand, and it's advanced and it's very difficult. Very difficult, not easy at all. Not easy at all for me. It was impossible for me last week. Last year. Last year it was impossible. This year it's starting to become better every week. And it really felt like, really felt impossible. But I could feel my tempo is improving. My range is improving. There's like little things that are improving, and I write them down because it's such a gradual process. And then when you finally get to your goal, it's very easy to forget all those little struggles you went through. And so I like keeping a log of, like,
how cool is that?
Like I have a log of
actual log.
Everything, like how many I did, any notes, what I felt, how difficult it was. And then when I go back, like I have like so many pages now over the months, I could see where I started, and keeping a log is very helpful because you know what you're progressing. And even if you're at a plateau, plateaus are very interesting. When you're like stuck somewhere and you're not improving and you're not regressing either, psychologically it feels like you're regressing. But
it feels like it's not success because you want to make improvements.
Yeah, but in actuality, anytime I have a plateau like that, I notice in my log that if I take a break for a few days, then I have this huge jump up. You know what I mean? But sometimes you just need a break. Sometimes
I also find that sometimes if I take a break or if a student takes a break, it does them good.
Yeah.
Because you get a little bit out of your head.
Yes, absolutely. I find that is very helpful. Of course, being consistent is important, but sometimes, and the other thing is if your motivation, like I notice if my motivation toward the workout is not there, I don't want to do it at all. That means that's a sign that I'm overtraining. You know what I mean? I'm doing it too much. And that's one of those signs that internal motivation, if it's really zero or just I don't want anything to do with it, you have to respect those signals too. You can't always just force and force. It's very helpful to take a break, step back, take a vacation from it, do something else. And then when you go back to it, you're refreshed and you go, oh, like I'm so good. Like I'm actually really good. Like, you forget.
Yeah. Revisit. But it's really cool that what you said about the handstand push-ups, that it began impossible. You use the word impossible.
It was impossible, of course.
But it was not actually impossible. It just felt impossible, or it was impossible at the time, but that was a temporary thing.
It required a
So
lot of progress.
that's really interesting. So anyone there who's listening,
Yeah.
if you think, if you think, oh, I can't sing, maybe for now,
Hmm.
but in a year, it's just 1 year, right? It's not like you have to wait eternity to see some significant change in yourself. And
Honestly,
from my
you'll see
experience,
a
it's even less
change
than a
every
year.
week. Every week
Yeah,
you will
yeah,
change. Every week.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So yeah, impossible should not, should not be the end of the story. Yeah, if something is impossible, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, now it's impossible, but just you wait.
And especially when someone is starting out, I'm sure it's the same way with singing, is in the beginning, every session you will have progress, right?
Yeah,
In the
yeah,
beginning, it's like fast, very
because
fast
it's new
progress.
stuff and it's gonna like
There's a lot to learn, and every
change you, like
time it,
blow you away. Yeah,
right. And then as you get more advanced, more advanced, and like higher levels, it becomes really hard to make the same amount of progress. The
it's
progress
also a matter of
slows down.
expectations.
Hmm.
Your
Yeah.
standards go up
Yeah.
as you advance, and
Yeah.
then you want, you want to achieve more and more, and you also understand more of what you're supposed to achieve.
Right.
And so if in your head, you know that you're supposed to do ABC, but your body is still not trained enough to do that
Hmm.
successfully, then that's going to create that dissonance and that frustration, because the muscles, they learn slower than just, the brain remembers.
Right. Yeah, and it
So that
helps.
could be very difficult.
It helps to always go. I like to always remind myself of where I started anytime I feel down,
Mm-hmm.
because it's so easy to forget. Like anytime you make a new achievement, that automatically becomes your new standard, right? In your
Yeah,
head, oh, that's the new standard now, right? And then you
exactly.
make another achievement, that's your new standard. And then eventually you will plateau, and then you feel, you don't feel good about yourself. But you have to remember,
Mm-hmm.
you came a very long way,
Yeah.
and those it's very helpful to remind yourself of
Mm.
those things.
One of my mentors once told me that progress is not a straight line. You know,
Absolutely.
the progress is like going up and then a little bit down and then up again, then down. Is like
It's like
it's
breathing.
very curvy and bumpy way.
It's like I say, it's like breathing, because you can't just keep inhaling. If inhaling
Ooh,
is progress, no, you can't. You have to, like, like you have,
yeah, wow, that's a good
yeah,
analogy. I like it.
yeah, like
Yeah, you
I,
have to allow for a bit of downfall sometimes,
exactly.
and that's also how you explore your own, in my case, your own voice, is by risking being terrible. Because if you don't take that risk, you're not going to find anything new. You're
Yeah,
only going to use what you're familiar with, and then what's the point in learning? What's the point in improving if you're not going to do new things?
right.
Yeah, so you have to, just take that as a given. Sometimes it's going to be horrible.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's going to be just not as good, just how it is. But that's how you sort of like look for the right way.
yeah, I
Uh,
agree. That's a very good way. I say all of life is a cycle. Everything is cyclical. The sun rising, the moon
mm-hmm,
rising, that setting, and this earth revolving around itself and around the sun. It's all cycles, right? And
mm-hmm.
the, everything it goes up and down, up and down. Nothing is a straight line, just like you said. So it's very good to remind yourself of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then whenever times are really dark, right? Everything is really like if you're in depression, you feel like you're in the bottom, like rock bottom. That's usually the sign that very soon things are going to start getting better really soon, because you can't go any further down. Like so mentally you will bottom out, and you're in this dark cycle, and you think it's only going to go lower and lower and lower and lower, but it really eventually you find yourself and realize, oh, like, no, things are great. And
Hopefully, yeah.
that process is a very psychological process. Whenever things are down, you have to persevere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm curious about something, because you are such a physical person. Yeah, you do all these things and you are in great shape, and I'm really jealous about that, by the way. Do you sometimes, like, just imagine a scenario where you're, for example, doing yoga and your breath is maximized and your body is really relaxed and you feel very open and very, very good? Do you find yourself sometimes singing?
Oh, do I find myself like physically singing?
Yeah, or maybe just, I don't know, making any sounds, or did you feel that need sometimes?
Um, sometimes, not often. Like sometimes you, like in downward dog or something, after a long sequence, and yeah, sometimes I'll just let out a sigh, like something like that. Something like sure. I mean those happen, but singing, no. I mean personally, I haven't.
Yeah.
Really tried.
Yeah, you said that you don't really have a lot of experience with that.
Yeah.
But even the sigh, I mean, it's almost like a reflex, like we want to let out a sound.
Yes.
When, when this channel is open, basically. And yeah, I maybe that's just my habit to sing. So if I feel good in my body, I just want to sing. Yeah, for me, it really goes hand in hand. And I discovered the idea of doing yoga and singing at the same time came when I was on a tour in Europe. And I had this routine every day that I would stretch. I wanted to do the splits, never did, but I got really ahead in that. And I did a bit of the pigeon pose for that, to just open the hip joints.
Yeah.
And, all kinds of really like hardcore stretches that I'm not used to do at all. And it feels extreme, yeah, but really good. So I found that when I lose my hip joints, that's really good for the breath. And it's really much easier to release the upper part. And I just found myself like one day in the pigeon pose and just letting out, the top of my range, basically just singing high notes, like crazy high notes, because it also hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit like screaming, oh, I'm in pain, but in a different way.
I actually find myself doing that in pigeon pose, out of all poses, because sometimes it can be very intense.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll do like something something like that, or
yeah. So imagine if you had more airflow, you would be singing opera.
That'd be cool. That's interesting. I'm gonna try it next time on purpose.
Yeah, try it.
I'm gonna try it.
Just sing one of your favorite songs.
Yeah.
In the pigeon pose or something.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah, I find it absolutely fascinating that we come from so-called different professions.
Yeah.
But it's just the same. It's the same thinking and a lot of the same principles.
Yeah, there's a lot of
that's really cool.
There's a lot of wisdom in every I guess specialty, but a lot of them overlap. A lot of them. I find that very, like the concept of looking forward in slacklining is the same in mountain biking. When I'm riding my mountain bike down a hill, I mean down a steep downhill. If you look down, the world is going to rush too fast. The ground is
Right.
like, it looks like you're going, it feels fast. But if you look
You
ahead,
probably fall too.
yeah, because you cannot control, you cannot process speed that fast. And then, so, but if you look ahead, everything slows down. You're not going as
Yeah.
fast. And so
And then you have more control.
you have more control. You don't feel like you're out of control, so your body feels in control. And then it's the same thing in surfing. When you're surfing and you are looking at the sand as you are on the board and going, everything is calm.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
all these
That's
concepts.
amazing.
Yeah, all these concepts are very, I don't know, all these concepts are really related, honestly.
Yeah. I think it has to do with two things. It has to do with balance, and it has to do with our will to control and how we don't know how to do that instinctively. So we try to control by tensing up or by looking like it's just straight ahead of ourselves. If it's like just looking down on the slack line or the bike, or if it's just holding something, holding a certain muscle in the upper body when you sing, because you're trying to make the voice, or you're trying to have a sense of control of this area. But it's very difficult to control your voice when you have tension around your throat. Because then you don't have airflow, then you have pressure on your larynx. It's not really functioning in its most healthy way. So it's very difficult to control it like that. The way to control your voice is to lose control over your muscles. And that's very counterintuitive for most people.
Right. Yeah. A lot of people want always to be in control, right?
Yeah. They want to go like, I got it. Yeah, I was like that. And it's not good. I'll tell you. It's not good. You have to let go of the control a little bit.
Yeah, that's
in
a
general.
good concept.
Yeah.
That's a very good concept.
I think I want to finish with the notion for all, athletes / yoga practicers. I don't know how you say that.
Yeah.
Try to sing a little bit when you feel good with yourself, when you do yoga or when you do some sports and you're active. Like, try to let out some sounds and see how it feels. And to the singers that are listening, I'm telling you, you have to be active. You have to be flexible. You do any of the things that we mentioned, that would be great. Yeah, whatever you want. It could be even something else. It could be Pilates. It could be, anything that has to do with strength and flexibility. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you need that. If you want to sing well, you need this. You cannot do without it.
Yeah, balance is very important. I think that's always been one of my goals, is to always be in balance. And it's tough. It's a lifelong process to find balance, but it's worth it because we are alive.
Yes.
And in the meantime, we have to make the best of it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. It's been great talking to you, honestly.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah,
I really enjoy this.
Yeah, maybe we could do this again in a future time, Lenore. Yeah, this is great. I will. Yeah, that's good. I like that. I'm now curious about singing. Now I'm gonna try it next time in random times.
Let me know how it goes.
Yeah, I will.
How it feels.
I've always wanted to get better at singing, and I always thought it's something I will learn much later in life when I have time and money to do that kind of a hobby, because it's going to be a extra hobby for me. It's always curious. Yeah.
Well, maybe you don't have to wait. Maybe you can already do that next time you do what you do.
Yeah, there's so many things to do.
Experiment with it. And I'm definitely going to check one of your courses, because I saw that you had something there with the hip joints, and
I
I
have
was
a hip
raving about the hip
flexibility.
joints before. Couldn't hurt, couldn't hurt. I'm also, being a breastfeeding mom is not helping. So
Yeah.
the hip joint, you always sit like in a bad posture. So no, it's not good.
Oh, I see.
So if there are any breastfeeding moms there, you need to work on your hips. Check out the course that Antranik has
Yeah.
about hip joints.
Well, it's
Yeah.
all right, Lenore. I will
Okay.
speak to you
Have
when
a
it's
fantastic day. I'm
Yeah.
going to have a great evening. We're like on both sides of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm curious.
Enjoy everything you do and enjoy singing and enjoy life.
And I'm curious, whoever watches this, please leave a comment. Let us know what you liked,
Yeah.
what you didn't like, all that good
Yeah,
stuff, so that we can.
absolutely.
So it's not just us speaking between each other, but we're doing it for you, the listener, as well. So
Yeah. And tell us if you're going to try singing while doing any sports activity, or if you're going to choose a physical activity. Tell us what you're choosing. What's your poison?
what's your poison? I like that.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.